let's see. Okay, Kasi said he would talk to us about what his experience was, what he went through today. Was it today? Yesterday. I think it
Yesterday.
was yesterday. What he went through yesterday is very, very similar to what you are going to go through. It's the same process, it's just a little bit different test. So, Kasi, tell us about everything, but especially tell us what you wish you had known ahead of time, what surprised you, so that we can all learn from it.
And Kasi, leave nothing out. Thank you. Zero. Every detail. Tell us. Thank you.
Okay, I will try. So, the first thing, I mean, it might sound basic, but is get your ID. So, because I know I will be doing a proctor exam and I have a lot of decoration around my room here, and I'm not taking that down for any exam. So, I needed to reserve a room at the library. So, in my mind, I know they're gonna ask me to empty my pocket and all that. So, I wanted to take only my ID and leave my wallet and everything. But funny story, I end up leaving my whole wallet.
Oh,
Yes, and the library is like 30 minutes away. And one thing, the one thing also that kind of caught me a little bit off guard is if you schedule to start your text at a certain point, you have to actually hit start 30 minutes before. Otherwise, you will be considered as absent. So my test was at 11. I needed to hit, start at 10:30 to download the Proctor, software and all that. So it was one of the two things. So lucky for me that when I was purchasing the ECBA, I actually went through the whole process except taking the exam. So my ID pop up, right away. I'm like, okay, fine. That was one of the things. But even if it sounds basic, because of the stress, I guess I end up leaving my ID at home. So so two things there, your ID and make sure, be there like a little bit early. If you can, even more than 30 minutes early. The second thing is be prepared because they're gonna ask you, that's actually the third thing. They're gonna ask you to scan the room and they really mean it. They make
So,
me
what do you
scan.
mean scan the room?
So I have a webcam on my laptop. You're literally gonna turn that around on 360 under your table under the chair. You will scan your palm, your ears, you know. No, they are not playing around, let's be honest here. And while I was doing that, because the library had like a transparent, like a mirror kind of stuff, people were looking at me like, is he okay? I'm like, yeah, yes, I am. Yeah, it was kind of funny, yeah, because
yeah.
like
Oh
nobody
my
was
God.
getting it, right? Looking, using my laptop, going out of the table. It was kind of weird, but yeah, they really mean that, and they will ask you some question like if you have any like pencil, pen, you have to show them. I was prepared, so I'm like, no, I don't need that. So I'm like, I don't have any. Did you have your phone with you? I said, I don't have my phone. My phone was in my car to kind of speed up that process a little bit. So we went through all that logistic and send me like the agreement. They don't want to see your mouth moving at all. So we kind of create uh an additional stress for me because I was like a robot for a second. I'm like, okay, I can move my mouth, but I have to read the question and read again. So it was something, but at some point, I feel like it's the beginning. When you go through all that, at some point you're gonna feel confident. And to now speak about the test itself, definitely you know, the study group has been helping and the discussion we have been having and some of the question, the way I kind of answer it is because maybe someone asks a question about it or someone said something funny that I remember. I'm like, yeah, we discussed that. So it's
Good.
actually, it helped a lot. And I don't know how I would have passed that test without that study group. And also, please read the, how we call it, the competency chapter. Please read that chapter. Even though in my ECBA was only 5%, some of the questions were actually based on that. So
Oh, wow.
you have to know the competency to kind of answer the question properly. So yeah, it was one of those things. But as far as layout, the way we use the watermark learning is the same thing. You have your question, your four answers, and you have the possibility to review it personally I mean, it's a personal choice. I decided to spend no more than 1 minute 30 seconds on the question. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I'm not gonna stress over it and kind of move through the process. But everyone is different, but they offer you an option to flag the question and come back later. I don't want to do that. And last thing, once you're done, make sure you end submit or end session. It's really important because you can finish your test and actually not submit it. You know,
Oh, wow.
the I don't know how they call them, the proctor, whatever, whoever was with me, he was like, at the end of your test, make sure you hit that button. I'm like, okay. And the good thing about it is before you even start your test, you have a trial session that you can take 3 hours before to kind of go through the whole process. But still, doing it like live is different from, you know,
To
doing
practice.
it like remotely or taking your trials to do whatever. But yeah, so it was kind of, yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but globally, that's what I can say there. And thank you again. Yeah.
Cassie, I'm so excited for you. And I'm curious, why did you decide to do an ECBA whenever you're qualified for the CBAP?
Well, yeah, so remember in our prior classes, I already signed up for it.
That's
Before I
true.
Oh,
realized I could have taken the CBAP. I thought it was kind of a linear step.
Mm,
I thought it was a prerequisite to take the CBAP. So
right.
yeah, if since I have it, I'm like, hey, let's go get it. Yeah.
Well, you are probably more equipped to be able to take the CBAP now. Even though you haven't finished your studies, you've had this experience and you can say, okay, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So he went to a room in the library. And
Yeah.
so, Kasi, you were responsible for monitoring everything and getting your computer set up. That is exactly the reason that it's like, I'm going to go to a center and let them do all the work. I just
Yeah,
want to go in and show them who I am and then go take the test.
but
So,
for ECBA, they don't have any room, unfortunately. Everything
okay.
should be online. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Um, I also asked the gentleman whenever I went to take my test, how many people have taken this test here? I live in the third largest city in Missouri, which that's honestly, that's not very big, but it is the third largest city. And he said he had never heard of anybody taking this test and he'd worked there for 8 months. So they have a variety of different tests that people come in to take. Just know they might not know the test you're taking. You've got to know the test you're taking, but they'll help you get started and stuff. Okay. Do y'all have any questions for Kasi? Or Kasi, do you have anything else you want to say?
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations,
congratulations.
Cassie.
Yeah.
Very, very excited for you. Okay. Okay, let's get started here. Y'all want to do chapter 6 again? You good with
Yes.
chapter 6? Okay. Strategy analysis. Let me begin this exam. I'll share the screen. Okay, screen 2. Okay, I think I said this to y'all the other day. I'm not positive I did, but I'm going to say it one more time just to be sure. As you go through chapter 6, I told you this is 6, 7, and 8 are the hardest ones, right? I don't expect you to get 100% of chapter 6. I expect you to get somewhere around 60% of it. And then whenever we go through chapter 7, you're going to start processing that new information and you're going to click on the stuff that happened in chapter 6. And you're going to go, oh, that's what we were talking about. And so you're going to grow more. Then again, same thing's going to happen in chapter 8. You're going to learn more about chapter 6 and 7 as you go through chapter 8. And then after we finish chapter 8, we're going to start taking 2 chapters at a time and answering questions like that, and then 3 chapters at a time. And we're going to just continue to build on this until you feel confident that you're ready to go. One more thing is, in my experience with my classes, I've noticed this trend that happens and it's been very consistent. So I'm going to tell you, I feel like it's probably going to happen to y'all too. You're going to have really good days and then you're going to have a day that it's like you cannot get the answers right. And you're going to beat yourself up, but know that that's normal. Your brain just gets tired of learning sometimes. And you got to give yourself a break and then come back and just keep going. The second thing is, I don't remember what I was going to say. The second thing is this. In my last class, I only had 3 people in the class with me And we studied and studied and studied. We would meet every day for lunch. 4 days, maybe 5 days a week for lunch and go over the same thing we're doing now. And they were like, well, I feel like I'm okay, but I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure. And so we studied and we just kept going. I mean, I wasn't going to tell them we were going to stop. They had to go take the test. It was up to them, right? Every single one of them came back after they took their test and gone, I could have done that a month ago. I could have
Oh,
done
wow.
that 2 months ago. I just wasn't, I didn't have enough confidence in myself. So we're gonna talk about what happens if you take to know you're ready to take the test, and then we're gonna talk about if you take the test and you don't pass, I know exactly what to do and I can tell you what to do. It will not kill you not to pass. I know it's not what you want, but I will tell you in my own experience, I get test anxiety and jazz like that. I didn't pass the first time. People on 5 continents knew I was taking the test. I've helped write the freaking book. So my option was one of two things. I could go home and curl up in a ball and die. I could hide from the world, or I could go home and schedule my next test for a week out and study and get myself together and go take it. And I passed with exemplary in 4 of the 6 knowledge areas. So I'm going to suggest if you have the experience that you don't pass, it will tell you what you're low on. You're going to get the email that says, what you made. You either exemplary or, no, I'm sorry, above standard, above some, it's exemplary is the high, and then acceptable, and then below. So you're going to know what you get on each of the knowledge areas. That's why I want you to be at or above on each of the knowledge areas, because I've seen people get good grades on 4 of them and then be below on 1 or 2 and they don't pass. So that's why we're going one knowledge area at a time, very systematically. Okay, let's do some questions. You ready?
Yep.
Now that I've just talked and talked and talked. Okay. I'm sorry, one more thing. We have a new person that has just joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself? I think you're on mute right now.
I think I'm on mute. Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I see that I got a weird name, only digits.
Yes, you do.
I wanted to open it from my laptop. It seems that I'm not logged in my account. Thank you so much, Tia. And hi, everyone. My name is Amal. I'm based in
Hello.
upstate New York, and I have been following the chapter. I believe it was back from 2024. And
Okay.
I'm already, my application is approved, but still I didn't schedule to take the exam. So I wanted to join you to prepare together, and eventually I'm going to schedule and take the exam.
Okay, very good. Oh, one thing I want to show you, since you haven't seen this before, I've got this document that I put together that shows the different tasks by knowledge area, and it's broken down just like the BABOK is, but it's a different view of it. I'll be sending you a link to this so that you have a link. I've used this and worked on it for literally years now, but it's going to allow us to do things like, we know we're in strategy analysis. It's easy to see there's only 4 tasks in strategy analysis. And if we get a question about what's an input to analyze current state, it's easy to see what it is. So it's just easy to get a view of this. Those of you who have been in the class before, you've seen this before, but I will send this to Amal.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the questions. Which of the following techniques can be used to help define solution scope? So we know the task we're in is define. Is it going to be define future state or define change strategy? Which one is it, you think?
Isn't it future state?
No.
It's not future state?
Well, okay, so here's my thinking. Define change strategy's first element is solution scope. So I'm pretty sure we're talking about define change strategy. But I
Okay.
can see why you would say define future state would be part of the solution scope because you consider that in there. Okay, so we're talking about techniques that are probably, I think, in the define solution, define change strategy task. There's only about 20 of them, guys. It's, I mean, no biggie, right? So we've got cost benefit analysis, root cause analysis, functional decomposition, or work breakdown structure. Let's start at the bottom. Is WBS or work breakdown structure function in there? And if it is, functional decomposition is the same thing, isn't it?
Yes.
More or less, yeah, but not
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go up to root cause analysis. Is root cause analysis in there?
To define the solution scope.
Yeah, to define solution scope. Would you use a root cause analysis for that? How about a cost benefit
Yeah.
analysis?
See.
I don't think you're going to use cost benefit analysis for this, right?
No, not A. No, you can
Okay,
eliminate
it's not
A.
A.
Not B.
So,
The root cause analysis is for assess risks. So between C and D, I would pick
okay,
C, to be honest. I don't know.
okay.
So
Anybody
functional
else for C?
decomposition is normal process.
Okay. This may be one of these that Watermark is a little weird on. Functional decomposition is used to break down the components of a solution into parts when developing a change strategy. Let's see why it says work breakdown structure is not it. Oh, work breakdown structure is not a technique. It is a document or an artifact. So this is the output of functional decomposition. That makes perfect sense. All right. Very good. Okay, this is one of our essay questions. It's got 2 questions based upon this scenario. Miriam is a BA who is working to improve the ability of the help desk to resolve more end user issues on the first call. She has documented year-to-date first call resolution rates and is working on identifying the root cause for calls needing escalations to other support groups. During her analysis, she receives first call resolution results for the last 2 reporting periods that show marked improvement from her baseline year-to-date results. So let's just talk about what she's doing real quick. She's trying to figure out what the root cause trends are for the calls that have to be escalated to other groups. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
For needing escalation.
So in that case, she's actually analyzing current state, right? She's looking what is currently happening. And let me have the statistics. But here's a weird thing. She finds out that the results for the last 2 reporting periods show a marked improvement from what she thought. So what's most likely happening? And this is according to the BABOK. In the BABOK company we now work for, there was a software update and the help desk was flooded with calls that were easy to resolve. There are most likely internal and external influencers at play that are altering the current state. The original year-to-date results were most likely flawed, or the help desk obtained new resources that were more knowledgeable and therefore could resolve more calls internally. This is a hard question because the answers are almost, we have to make assumptions.
Yeah.
So
Right.
B, maybe B is the right answer.
Why do you like B?
Because BABOK refers about influencers,
Yeah.
which can I'm not sure about altering the current state, but yeah. So
Yeah.
But we are talking about current state,
Current
and so
state, yeah.
that kind of makes sense. Anybody else?
But-
Anybody
but-
agree or disagree?
Okay,
I would agree with that.
How B and D are different?
This one is specific to a single thing, and this one is a very broad answer.
So then most probably B, because
Yeah, okay, let's test B.
Yeah.
The answer is correct. The current state of an enterprise is rarely static while a change is being developed and implemented. As such, the current state can never really be baselined. Very good. And the next question on the same scenario. What is Miriam's next best step before continuing with root cause analysis? She was trying to get root cause analysis for calls that needed escalation to other support groups. The report to the sponsor that the problem is improving on its own and that pursuing the initiative isn't cost effective at this point. Researching what, if anything, in the environment changed to understand the cause for the marked improvement. Double check the year-to-date results to ensure data precision and integrity, or modify root cause analysis activities to the categories of calls that were not resolved on the first call during the last 2 months. Can we eliminate any of those?
I think we can eliminate D. Because, well,
Why are we eliminating D, Kasi?
I think before you can modify something, you have to know it.
That's true.
It is, yeah.
I like that.
So I think for me, I will say B, like boy. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I like B as well. Reason boy.
Okay. Let's test B and see what we get. B is correct. Before determining how to continue, Miriam has to discern what, if anything, changed in the environment, and if whatever change will significantly modify the current state definition and/or her analysis activities. Very good. See, y'all got this. I think we're going to move into the next chapter next week.
I love the Kasi reasoning for why not selecting the D. Thank you.
Yes. This conversation is very beneficial.
Oh, yeah.
As Kasi mentioned earlier, somebody said something and it
Yeah.
helps you remember and figure it out. Or somebody says something and it shines a light on something that you hadn't seen before. Rachel was just hired as a BA from an organization where she was instrumental in the identification and deployment of a particular customer relationship management system, CRM, and has a strong relationship with the vendor. The new organization is facing similar challenges as her previous employer and has asked her, Rachel, to accept a role as a BA on the initiative to address those changes. She respectfully declined the role. Why is that? So the BABOK talks about this specific situation, and you're not going to grab it out of our reality because it's weird. But the BABOK has a specific thing to say about this. Possible answers. She's concerned that her previous experience may result in suboptimal recommendation. She would like to work on something new to assist in career development. She is concerned that this may result in conflict of interest, or she signed a non-compete agreement with her previous employer. Can y'all eliminate any?
So the right answer may be non-compete agreement.
So you think that's the correct answer? Okay.
But in real life, it could be an option.
In real life, I agree with you. So let's walk through the question again. She's done something very similar in a previous organization, and the new organization is saying, hey, you have experience with this. Bring your experience to work for us. But she turns them down because the BABOK says she should. Why does the BABOK say that she should not take on the same project at a new company?
A.
I've got one vote for D.
I would go with A because as a new at the company, she doesn't know their business processes, so she would be bringing her knowledge of business processes from another organization, which could result in the suboptimal recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got to vote for A and D. Anybody else?
I think A as well. She might be biased towards the solution.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be more of a bias.
Let's test A. Bias of the author of a business case is a stated limitation to the tool. So whenever you're talking about business case creation, the seventh technique is bias of the author. So things that she believed before, it's like she still believes them. You know, This is a
Mhm.
limitation. These are constraints. These are opportunities. This is process. She still believes them. And getting a brand new, fresh view on something is really hard. That's why one reason that we like to bring in BAs that don't know the industry. It's like, oh, you're going to ask us questions because you're not going to say, well, that's the way we always do it, or that's how everybody does it. We like
Yeah.
new BAs. Okay, good reasoning. I
Quick
appreciate the
question.
conversation. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tia. I had a quick question.
Yes.
So, I think a few weeks back we discussed something along the line that the way you use Jira in your company will be
Mhm.
different from, any other company. Is there a case where, we can refer to this answer here in the sense where she refused to take that on because of her limitation and not knowing actually the process?
Is there a case for it? I'm not sure what you're
I'm talking
asking
about
about.
tools, not necessarily the whole process. I'm talking
Okay,
only on
about
tools.
the
Right?
tools.
Yeah.
Um, let me answer what I think you're asking, and then you can tell me if I've got it right. Whenever you are familiar with an application or a process or a company or an industry, you're less likely to ask questions and you're more likely to make assumptions. As I said, that's the way we've always done it. Or I don't know what that field's for. They won't let us use it. And you just don't even ask. Whenever you are brand new to it, you will explore it. You're going to ask the questions. And you often feel like this is probably a dumb question, but why do we do it this way? Or, what was this before? Things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Ironically, I posted a post on LinkedIn about this specific thing today about recruiters wanting people with specific industry experience. And it's like, guys, you're missing out. And I've got 3 really good bullet points in there. So there's that. Okay. How would utilizing decision analysis, so this is a technique, in the development of a business case prove beneficial? So we're going to be talking about the business case process and using decision analysis. Assists in estimating cost projections for technology and new processes required to support the new solution. Compares the cost of implementing a solution against the benefits to be gained given identified risks. The decision model would prevent the team from having to recreate the wheel, or used to assess potential risks that may impact the solution and the costs and benefits associated with this. Can we eliminate any of those? I'm going to tell you C does not sound BABOK-y at all.
No,
I mean,
decision
think?
models included would prevent the team from having to recreate. No, you're not going to do that. So,
Okay. What do we think the correct answer is?
I'm tempted to go with A, and only because it make more sense in a business case. Wait a minute.
So decision analysis, is it limited to cost projections though?
Yeah, that's a good
yeah.
point.
It would, it would be for everything, not cost projections only, right?
Right. Yeah. That's that.
Maybe B?
Why do we like D?
No, no, B.
Oh, B is in boy. Okay. Anybody else?
How about oh yeah, B. Yeah, B is
Okay, you like B also? Let's test B. B is correct. And look, you got 2 references. This is in the 4th
6-4.
task in the 6th section, which would be techniques. And then here it is in the techniques area. So decision analysis, whenever you're working on a business case, compares the cost of implementing a solution against the benefits to be gained given the identified risk. I think that this is part of ROI. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
return on investment,
Return on investment. Yeah.
right? Okay. Lydia is a BA working in a financial institution. The organization has not had success implementing commercial software. Every time a package has been bought, it seems to cause more trouble than it's worth with customization requirements, trouble with interfaces, etc. Lydia is torn between recommending a commercial software package and building the software. What technique or tool would best help her with this analysis? So, bonus question before we start. Commercial software package. What's another way of saying that?
Solutions off the shelf.
Off the shelf, or it's like a waterfall.
Off the
It's like
shelf.
a vendor.
Okay. So the BABOK calls these COTS, commercial off the shelf.
Okay.
Okay, commercial off the shelf.
COTS. Okay. And what technique or tool would best help her with this analysis? Would it be a decision tree, a decision model, a business case, or a business capability analysis? What can we eliminate? And welcome, Stephen.
Hi.
So let's start with this decision tree or decision model. Which one of those is a legitimate technique?
Decision tree.
Okay,
How,
that
how
means we can
decision
eliminate
tree is
decision
different
model.
than a decision model? I'm wondering how decision tree is different than decision model. Isn't
Okay, a decision tree is one of the 50 techniques, is in one of the 50 techniques that's listed in the BABOK. Decision model is not in there. So we can eliminate that. Okay.
okay.
Are we going to use a business case as a technique or tool for analysis?
No, not really for this example.
No, well, this decision tree is not a technique, is it?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm
Is
looking
it-
at the list and I see decision modeling on the techniques.
Yeah.
So it's decision model and not a decision tree. Okay, so we should eliminate A and C.
But I think decision tree itself is a model, itself is a decision model, and we use it a lot.
I concur with your reasoning. If it's not in the BABOK though, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
No, it can be an element. I don't remember by heart. It can be an element of a decision model.
Okay, so which technique are we thinking is going to be
D.
one?
Maybe D is the correct answer.
Okay, business capability analysis. Anybody else?
I agree with D.
Okay, let's test D.
Nothing in the current company.
Decision tree.
Okay, so business capability analysis may provide input into analysis to see if capabilities exist within the organization to either build a new or customize a commercial solution. Or decision tree, which is correct, is a tool contained within decision analysis that will help objectively identify the best decision. Everyone will have an opinion in this scenario. So decision analysis is 10.16.
I have to write
And
that
it
one
is
down.
used in define future state, assess risk, and define change strategy. So it is well used in this chapter. Anybody need a screenshot of this?
I captured.
I'm writing it down.
Okay, all right. I can drop screenshots in the chat if that would help y'all.
And Thea, we're in chapter 10.
Sure.
We're in
No,
chapter 6,
6.
but let me pull this over real quick. Tell me whenever y'all finish writing this down and I'll show you something different.
No, but I'm checking our book and indeed decision tree is not there. How can?
Okay, let's use the IIB
Of decision
knowledge
analysis.
map to search with the agent. It might be faster.
You mean to search on a PDF?
Yeah, so it's part of the element, actually. So on 1016, for the element that tree decision tree, a common tool for mapping the alternative of uncertain decision using percentage likelihood and financial impact of each choice.
Okay.
Mm.
So in our book is in 378.
Mhm. Decision tree is an element of decision analysis, so I'm
Yep.
checking. Okay.
Okay.
Tia, a quick question.
Sure.
So, why not B, why A? I mean, how different a model and a tree is?
Their explanation, a decision model, this may or may not help as decision models show how repeatable decisions are made. This may or may not exist in the organization for this particular decision. So if they do have this same situation that they've had repeatedly, they can use a decision model. But a decision tree is for a new decision to have to be made. Does that answer your question?
To be honest, really not, but because I might be wrong. I'm thinking that decision model is the main heading, and then under the decision model we can find different models. And
Elements.
one of those
Correct.
model can be a decision tree. So even if we select decision model, it should answer the question, because within the decision model we should have a decision tree.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
I understand.
10.2 is a decision tree in the book under decision modeling. And then decision tree is also it's under two different techniques as elements.
Well, that's irritating. Okay, so let's say it like this. The 50 techniques that are listed in the BABOK, as you know, several of them have multiple techniques underneath them. They're like subs, right? So it's umbrella and then all of the subs. Well, on these questions, if one of the subs is the answer, it doesn't want the umbrella. It wants the one that you use. So it's asking for the technique or tool that will best help with the analysis. So it wants a specific thing, not a category of things. And the umbrella would be kind of the category. Does that make sense?
If this is approach for all questions, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. If you can be, it wants you to choose the best answer according to the BABOK.
Mhm.
So no matter what, the best answer according to the BABOK. Occasionally, Watermark does give us this thing where they want us to be very precise and specific. And then 2 questions later, it's like, oh no, we want a more general answer, not precise and specific. But it gives you the education of the concepts that you need to learn to be able to take the test successfully. So I keep using it. Okay, let's move forward. Which of the following types of risk tolerance would most likely need a risk mitigation strategy? So there's 3 types of risk tolerance. First of all, which one of these is not a risk tolerance type? Is it risk averse, risk transferring, neutrality, or risk seeking? Which one can we eliminate?
Neutrality?
Yeah, it's
Now
like it doesn't matter.
Is that one of the types?
The book test questions. A lot.
Risk seeking would need a mitigation strategy.
Yeah, I think D's the answer. I was just thinking neutrality wasn't one of the.
Right, wasn't
Okay.
one of them. Yeah, neutrality is one we could
Okay, so
eliminate.
let's back up.
I
The
thought
types of risk tolerance, risk transferring is a way to take care of risk, but it's not one of the types. It's risk averse,
Oh.
neutrality, and risk seeking. Those are your 3 types.
Hmm.
People and companies typically fall into one of those 3 types. So the question is asking you which type would most likely need a risk mitigation strategy. So let's talk about the 3 types. Risk seeking, we're going to take on risk. We'll take care of it whenever it happens. We're not going to worry about it. Okay. Risk neutrality, we don't want to be stupid, but we we're not risk seeking either. We're kind of right there in the middle. And for a risk mitigation strategy, if it's a high risk, they're going to have a strategy. But if it's not a high risk, high probability of something happening, they're probably not going to worry about it. Risk averse, they do not want risk at all. But there's no project that doesn't have risk. Every project has some kind of risk, because risk is things that can go wrong or things that we have to deal with, but we don't know that they exist yet. We think that they possibly could. Those are the people that want your risk mitigation strategies created, because if it happens, we want to be able to take care of it. Okay, so let's try risk averse. With risk aversion, there's an unwillingness to accept much uncertainty. So what they do is they create risk mitigation strategies, and they do it a lot. They spend a lot of time on it. And ironically, people that have anxiety, that are spicy, that see patterns, and people that have had abuse in their life are awesome at at identifying risks and creating risk mitigation strategies, because they see it faster than people that have had safe lives that are normal. So there are benefits to having a hard life, guys.
So sometimes pessimist people can be very beneficial.
It can be. It can be. The business analyst is working with stakeholders and the project team to evaluate and rule out options not believed viable. This is the ultimate output of what is the ultimate output that business analyst is trying to produce? So they're trying to evaluate and rule out options that are not believed viable. Are they working on creating the change strategy, the solution scope, a gap analysis, or a future state description?
I think D.
Why do we like D?
If the this is in the future state activity, so you don't want to propose something that doesn't make sense. It would be like a waste of time and resources. So it would make sense there. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, I like your reasoning.
Yeah.
I got
Maybe
one.
scope B also.
B is also good. So, but I prefer D over B, but let's see what happens.
Why
Okay.
not A?
Why B? This is how we crafting the scope, by eliminating unnecessary things and keeping only important ones.
Okay. Let's test D. We have more votes on D.
Actually, yeah,
So this is an input into the define change strategy task, which results in an output of the business analyst that the business analyst is trying to produce. Solution scope is correct because it identifies new capabilities the change will deliver. This one's hard, isn't it? So we're talking about the fourth task, and it's going to be in purpose. This is purpose, and this is output right here. So the purpose of define change strategy, let me pull this over. Define change strategy, develop and assess alternative approaches to the change, and then select the recommended approach. And the output would be your change strategy, which would be the approach the organization will follow to guide change, and the solution scope, which is the solution scope that will be achieved through the execution of the change strategy. So solution scope is the output. I should have mentioned that to y'all. Output, it's literally the output of the task. Okay. I see y'all making notes whenever things are hard. I appreciate that you are noting where to go back and look and say, I need to study this more. That's wonderful. That's a very effective technique. Okay, question 1 on this scenario. Alexis performed an enterprise readiness assessment and discovered during the course of the assessment that a couple of key stakeholders had not fully bought into the business need or even the process the business analyst, for that matter, calling it fluff. Alexis documented and communicated her concerns to the sponsor with the associated impacts. After much consideration, the sponsor decided the potential benefits of the work outweighed the risks. So question 1, how would you describe the sponsor's attitude toward risks? So none of that matters except she's identified a risk. The sponsor decides the benefit outweighs the risk. That's all that matters, right? The rest of it is truly fluff. The sponsor's attitude toward risk. Is he unknown, risk adverse, risk seeking, or neutral? So she's identified risks. She takes it to him. Which one of these can we eliminate?
Unknown, I think, to eliminate.
Okay. We're going to eliminate unknown because he's demonstrated his risk tolerance level, right?
So risk
Yeah.
seeking also to eliminate looking at situation.
Okay. Why are we eliminating risk seeking?
So looking at sponsor's reaction,
Okay.
doesn't look like he is seeking for any risks. So he takes a decision.
I think this is where it tells me he's not risk seeking. If he said, "Oh, don't worry about it," that would be different. But after much consideration, so he is thinking about it. He's weighing it. What do you think, Robin?
I was going to say that actually I think it's the risk aversion again.
Okay.
Or wait a minute. Let me see. Just because well, that's unwillingness to accept. So maybe it is more of the neutral, because he's willing to accept the risk because it's going to be worth the benefit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only go at neutral because it doesn't mention any mitigation.
I think the answer is C. I don't know why.
Okay.
So we're all over the board.
We're all over the board. I tell you what, I'm going to pick D just because I don't think anybody else picked D. We're going to see what we get. Okay, so this
Unknown.
scenario is describing an issue versus a risk. Here's where we messed up, guys. She identified something that was actually happening. It's not a risk. A risk is something that we haven't proven it's happening yet.
Okay.
So it's an issue. It's certain that a couple of key stakeholders have not bought into the business analysis work. A risk has an element of uncertainty. So we're not actually talking about sponsors' attitude toward risk here. The situation's not about a risk. That's almost a trick question, but we fell for it.
Does BABOK says anything about unknown? That's why I eliminated, because I've never meant.
I don't recall it saying anything about unknown, but it does give us a definition of what a risk is, and this didn't qualify for as a risk.
Okay.
Okay. We won't make that mistake again, will we?
Be a quick question here.
Yes.
The answer says well, let me just read this to the correct now. It sounds like the answer is assuming that the stakeholders have not submitted all of the risk. So the BABOK confuses me. When I get and it just starts to scratch my head. So let me see the correct.
I understand that. But what has happened is she has performed this and discovered as a result that they've not bought into the business need or even having a business analyst work on the project. So it's a known.
So it's known that she has assessed that she has not gotten all of the feedback from all of the stakeholders.
No, I don't think that's what it says.
Okay.
It says that a couple of key stakeholders, and key is important there, have not fully bought into the business need. So we don't even know if the project is needed. And then they have not bought into the process of the business analysts, calling the business analysts being involved in it fluff. So this is something we know. It's not a risk anymore. It's an issue. Okay?
Okay, I'm still confused.
I understand that. We're probably gonna have other things that are confusing too, but if you just accept this is what the BABOK says, you'll be able to pass the test. I promise. I shouldn't promise. Understand that if you understand what the BABOK says, you will be able to answer the questions with lots more confidence than if you try to balance your own understanding versus I don't agree with the BABOK. Just in this company that we work in called the BABOK company, this is the way we do our work. We follow the rules of the BABOK. Okay?
So, Tia, the previous question actually, it was just a logic and reasoning. It is not even about the BABOK.
No, it is about the BABOK. The BABOK talks about the definition of a risk. What we failed to do in here is we identified that this is we thought we were talking about risk, but we didn't go against what the BABOK says the definition of a risk is.
So,
We let this one word mislead us.
the sponsor decided the potential benefit of the work outweighed the risk. So now it is talking about the risk, and also it is talking about the attitude of the sponsor.
All of this up here are issues. The things that possibly could happen as a result of that could be called a risk, but we're not talking about risks here. Example of a risk associated with scenario. I'm sorry, this is wrong one. Let me go back to the right one. The sponsor's attitude toward risk.
So that last sentence is not telling us about the attitude of the sponsor toward the risk. He decided the potential benefits of the work outweighed the risk. What is the simple meaning of this sentence? Is it not telling the sponsor attitude toward the risk?
This is not telling us the sponsor's attitude toward the risk because first of all, it doesn't outline what the risks are. All of this up here is issues. So we know what the issues are. If we knew what she had said, okay, here are the risks that I see, A, B, C, and D, then we could say the sponsor's attitude toward these things. You know, this one is a high risk. This one, you know, it goes into, it would require a lot more detail. But we don't know what the sponsor's attitude is because this scenario is presenting issues. We're talking about the issues, not the following things. Okay, I'm going to move forward. Second question on the same scenario. What is an example of a risk associated with this scenario? So we know what the issues are. Potential risk after this are that stakeholders who have bought into the business analysis work may actively sabotage the effort. The BA will need to work to understand the root cause of their lack of buy-in. The stakeholders will be monitored closely to identify actions that may signal saboteur-like behavior, or a couple of key stakeholders do not buy into the business analysis work. So this is a known thing, right? So it's not a risk.
Yeah.
And
I don't see the difference between A and C.
C is a mitigation, I think.
I guess it will be monitored.
Maybe A is the correct answer.
I think so as well.
okay, I've got one vote for A.
I agree with A as well.
Okay, 2 votes for A. Let's test it. This is correct. A risk has an element of uncertainty. So we don't know what's going to happen, but the BABOK does talk about actively monitoring your stakeholders to see if anyone is going to work against you. Very good. You have been instructed to compare your organizational practices against the best-in-class practices at other companies. What do you need to perform? So this is specific to a technique. Is it a feasibility study, a market analysis, a focus group, or a benchmark study? What is the
D.
technique? that you compare your organizational practice against best-in-class practices at other companies.
Benchmark study.
Yeah,
Yeah, benchmarks
I
when
was
you're
gonna say
yeah.
benchmark.
Y'all are right. That is exactly the definition of a benchmark study. Sam's recommendation was unanimously approved by the steering team. What really sold decision makers were the forecasted benefits of the future state he modeled with incredible detail. How will Sam utilize that forecasted potential value in the business analysis process? Victory for Sam. Sam assessed and reported the potential value in order to drive consensus among decision makers. Since consensus was reached, the primary purpose of the forecasted benefits has been fulfilled. Sam will ensure that all requirements and designs support the delivery of forecasted benefits. Sam will define metrics and key performance indicators from which to measure solution performance once the future state is implemented. Or Sam will ensure that requirements and designs meet quality standards and are usable for the purpose they serve. What do we think about the first answer, question A?
I think we can eliminate it.
Why, Sandy?
Because it's more, the future state is, I'm sure the future state is an input for more things than just the initial decision making.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's very honest, does it? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I got him to say yes. Now I can go do anything I want. That's not
Right.
what you do.
My
Okay.
rationale is it's not BABOK-y. That's my rationale.
It's
That's
not
okay.
BABOK.
Okay. All right. What do we think the right answer is?
I will say B.
I think I want to go with B.
Okay, why do we like B?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of a logical reasoning in my head than the remaining answers. So
Okay. All right. Let's test B. B is correct. Forecasted benefits is another way of saying needed value. This answer describes the task of validating requirements that is one of the tasks we use and uses the future state description and output of the defined future state task, which is what the scenario described. Any questions on this? Bell's reasoning is spot on. I love it. Financial resources, patents, reputation, and brand names are all examples of which of the following elements. Are they internal assets, business architecture, capabilities, or macroeconomic factors?
A, internal assets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. The BABOK also calls these enterprise assets. So yes, they're internal assets or enterprise assets. I want y'all to know I so much appreciate you participating in the conversation and bringing your questions, but Michelle's mic isn't working and I miss her voice. I miss you in the
Oh.
mic, lady. Okay, let's keep going. When should strategy analysis be performed? Anytime it makes sense to do so. Prior to planning the business analysis approach, before requirements are elicited for any given change, or when a business need is identified. What does the BABOK say?
When the business need is identified.
Anybody else agree?
Uh, I'm tempted to choose A, and the only reason I'm saying that is in more
I
than
was gonna say that one too. Anytime.
yeah, and the reason why is that multiple time in the BABOK, I mean, when it comes even to requirement of prior chapters, we end up choosing like the more broad answers because you can really define when like an analysis will be conducted really in the project. Anything can affect or lead you to do a new analysis, either a requirement change or anything really can influence how you would do your analysis. So I will say A.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who amongst you that is answering is going by what the BABOK says versus what seems logical?
I think business needs are an input to strategy analysis, but I don't know what the timing of that when the needs identified if the timing on that on D is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anytime it makes sense, BABOK never says anything similar.
Okay. Well, let's test D. We'll see what we get. By
It's
performing strategy analysis as the need is identified, stakeholders can decide whether to address the need or not. This may be true, but not the reason the BABOK states it's too general of an answer. So it is true, but this is the answer BABOK wants you to give. So strategy analysis can be performed when the business need is identified. And as the business need is further identified, if you find there's a new thing, you check your strategy analysis all over again. Make sense?
Okay,
Yes.
Question?
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
can you or anyone can put a reasoning behind why it is good to do a strategy analysis when a business need is defined? Like how we can rationalize this answer, why it is the good answer?
Is it
Anybody
because
want
sometimes
to
a
have that?
business need doesn't need to be addressed? It might not be, there might not be a benefit. If you're spending an extra 10 seconds doing something, there's a need to make it, is it beneficial to actually address that 10 seconds? Oh, that's my guess.
I think that's pretty good. So let's say that a business need is identified. Let me think of something.
I think business need is an input to strategy analysis. It can also explain things.
That's
Yeah,
true.
it's a problem or opportunity to be addressed. And you want, identify the needs. Yeah.
Can somebody tell me what the definition of strategy analysis is? Strategy analysis knowledge area describes the business analysis work that must be performed to collaborate with the stakeholders in order to identify a need for strategic or tactical importance business need, enable the enterprise to address that need, and align with the resulting strategy with the change with higher and lower level strategies. So let's say we're sending out mail from an insurance company and the mail keeps getting lost and we're having to pay extra postage. We have unhappy customers and stuff. So we have a need. We have identified a root cause that we don't have all of the address on the mail that we're sending out. We don't have an address line to. So that's our strategy of what we're going to do to fix to meet the need. Until we find that we have a need, we don't need to talk about a strategy. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Ginger is a BA working in the investment area of a large financial institution. A new regulation is passed that will force a change in the related business process as well as the associated software. The business area Ginger has been working with does not understand why Ginger does not simply ask the IT area to make the change in the software, since the change is a result of a mandate. She replies that first she needs to understand the business need. Why? So they said, you've got to do it. And she's like, wait, I got to understand stuff. And they're like, just go do it. Nope. According to the BABOK, which is the best answer. She's trying to identify current state, right? We're in analyze current state. Understanding the business need will ensure the most cost-effective and viable way to fulfill the new regulatory requirements will be identified. Ginger needs the information for the business case, no matter how self-evident it appears. She needs to understand what the business is trying to achieve through the changes. Ginger wants to ensure documentation is robust, aligns to best practices, and auditable for the regulators. Now, remember, we have a new regulation. So we got regulators, right?
Yeah.
So what do we think is the best answer?
A.
Did you say D?
A. Apple.
A.
A.
Okay.
A. That's what she said.
Why do we think A?
So the sooner we understand the business need, we will proceed with the next step in the right way. Because on a later state, we will have to go back to the very beginning in process. And
Okay.
cost will be more expensive.
Okay. That's good reasoning. Anybody else? Not an easy one, obviously.
All of them sound
No.
nice there. I mean,
C also explains similar things, but I think A is formulated better.
Okay.
I'd kind of lean towards D. I mean, I
Okay.
understand like A makes sense, but D just kind of seems because because it's new regulation, it just seems
Okay.
like it needs to be auditable.
Okay.
But
I
I
can understand that.
could go 50-50 with A. So, but I can see the logic behind D.
D happens after she understands the business need.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with A as well. I think understanding the business need will ensure the most cost-effective and viable way to fulfill the new regulatory requirement.
Okay. I've got 2 votes for A. Let's learn. This is a recurring theme throughout strategy analysis. Let's see why it says D is not. This is an invented answer. Good thing we didn't pick it, right?
yeah, and quick question there. So,
Yes.
when it comes to regulation, right? Once a new regulation has been passed, so why are we still talking about a need? Because it's a regulation, either you do it or you will be exposed to fine, right? So why are we referring to need in that specific case?
Let me tell you, the regulation doesn't mean you have to do it.
Okay.
Irina, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this after I finish, but let me tell you. I worked for a Quest Diagnostics. They do medical diagnostic testing on blood and all kinds of other things. We had a regulation come through that said you got to do this thing differently. And they looked at it and they said, okay, the fine for not doing this, not meeting the regulation, is this much. The amount of money it's going to cost us per year over, say, the next 5 years is going to be much higher than that. They chose not to do it.
Yeah, it's a
They
kind
were
of
okay with
penalty.
Yeah.
We always question the same. What is the penalty of not doing that? And a regulation is a statement. How you understand and interpret it, it can be understood differently too. And there are a lot of experts participating in the discussion when we decide if we do it or not. Because in general, it's expensive. So all regulations, like implementing everything, it's very expensive, and you pick like the most relevant parts.
Okay. Yeah,
and I mean, that doesn't mean that they don't follow all regulations. They just have to do an evaluation on what's best for us and, you know, what would be the long-term ramifications if we don't do it. But I want you to remember something. Those of you who have been business analysts for a while, you're probably aware of this, and I apologize for saying this, but whenever you make a change, it's not just the cost of the change. It's the cost of stopping people's work, slowing down people's work. There's a cultural impact of, you know, we don't know what's going on or we need to be trained. There's the cost of the training, creation, delivery, taking people away from their work for all that time. Then there's going to be other costs on top of that. So it's not just we're making a change. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes along with a change
And
as far as costs.
follow-up question.
Yes.
Is that okay for a company to deploy, like starting implementing regulation like over the year, like incrementally, like instead of taking maybe, I don't know how many months to deploy something or have a regulation in place, we'll be like, okay, maybe for the 3 years, we're gonna take the penalties and then starting building something slowly to kind of fix that, because we wanted to at some point, have that regulation in force.
Typically, what they'll do is a regulation has a deadline,
Okay.
and then Irena doesn't have a reevaluation period periodically, like once a year.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
so they'll reevaluate to see if another fine is due. So yeah, you could say we're not going to do it for 3 years and we'll take the fine, and by the end of that time we can get it done. But
So
you
we
got
do it annually, every year, and we reassess all we do in terms of regulations, because they release like all updates and we have to consider them.
And here's the cool thing, the dates aren't always on the same date. It's like every year, all throughout the year, there's new things that come out and have to be reevaluated. And sometimes they'll make changes to the previous regulation. So the next time it's different. It's a juggling act. In the insurance industry, every single state has their own regulations. And they can come out with, they want a new data call and they want you to do it differently. And very often, multiple states will have the same type of report and you have to do it differently with different codes. And not meeting them there's a penalty. And it may be the penalty is you can't do business in their state anymore if you don't, or if you have too many errors, differences in your reporting. Irena, you work in medical software. Do you have a wide variation across the different regulations that you have to meet?
Yeah, it depends on the markets we deploy, and every market has a different regulations. I prepare a presentation about that, so we'll
Irena's going to
present.
be providing that presentation to us in just a few weeks, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, by the way, the most challenging part is now applying artificial intelligence to diagnostic part, because it was not regulated at all, and this is very fast evolving, and they releasing update very frequently. What was not regulated yesterday, but today it's a requirement that you have to provide more evidences. Yeah, that's the fact.
Oh, and they can also come in and audit your records. They can audit to be sure that you've got your records in the format that they like them in. Even project records, it's crazy. That's why we have job security, because we'll do the grunt work. Okay, Kathy is a new BA who has asked you to review a business case she developed before she submits it for review and approval. The business case outlines a compelling change strategy, contains a rigorous financial feasibility analysis for the recommended strategy. So question 1, you provide Kathy feedback that while her recommendation is compelling, something critical is missing. What is it? So what does she have? Outlines a compelling change strategy, contains rigorous financial feasibility analysis for the recommended strategy. So she's missing a financial analysis for other change strategies, an implementation plan to prove feasibility, evaluation criteria for the recommended strategy, or opportunity costs related to other change strategies. So we're talking about a business case. It wants to know if you know what elements need to be included. Can we eliminate any of these? It looks like she already has evaluation criteria, maybe? She's got a compelling change strategy. I don't know. In my mind, if it's compelling, it's got evaluation criteria in it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Maybe that's an assumption on my part. So is she missing financial analysis of other change strategies? This one looks like a sub of that one. Opportunity costs related to other change strategies would be included in the financial analysis, right? And implementation plan to prove feasibility. Does she need that?
Maybe not really.
It doesn't seem to be as important as some of these other things that's being talked about.
I'm thinking D.
Okay. Why do you like D?
think she need to evaluate the cost related to the whole change strategy, not only focus on the financial aspect of it.
Okay, so opportunity costs would be included in the financial analysis, right?
Well, yeah.
Maybe A.
Yeah.
Got one vote for A. Let's
Ah,
test A.
okay.
Each change strategy should include costs and benefits in order to determine feasibility. So I had this question in my other study group, and I want to go over it with you just to be sure that we're all on the same page. And maybe you can tell me something that I'm misthinking on this. According to the BABOK, a business case should be created for each opportunity. It's like we've got 5 different ways we can do this, and we think that they're all feasible, but we need to do your financial analysis for each one of them. And we also need to do a financial analysis for what would happen if we don't do anything. Compelling change strategy, it wants to know how do we propose from a high level without getting into the project, how would we do the change strategy? How would we get from current state to desired future state? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
One of the other questions that we ran across, and the reason that I'm bringing this to you, is it said that they had created a financial analysis for the preferred change strategy, but it didn't say they had completed a financial analysis for each of the change strategies being considered. So I wanted to be sure that y'all understood that, because we had a very long discussion about that in the other group. Kathy is a new BA who asked you to review a business case sheet. Oh, sorry, same scenario. What rationale do you give Kathy for the criticality of the missing information? So we determined she didn't have the, what was it called? The financial analysis
Financial analysis, yeah.
for all of the change strategies. Stakeholders need to believe the recommended strategy is doable or feasible given their resource constraints. She has to provide evidence that she's thought through how the recommended strategy will be evaluated once deployed. Stakeholders need to understand what benefits they are deferring for other change strategies, or stakeholders need to understand options considered and rejected to support their decision-making process. Okay,
D may be the right answer.
D is in dog?
No, C.
C?
Mhm.
Okay. Why do you like C?
So if they have all like analysis of every strategy, they can understand what they eliminate. And now
Okay.
they don't have full picture. So
Mhm.
it's now either best guess or they just trust her opinion, like what she recommends.
Okay. Anybody else?
I like C. I can understand why you choose C, yeah.
Okay. Very good. This is true.
It's
This is
incorrect.
true, but is only part of the financial analysis related for other change strategies.
It's the
According to the
bottom.
BABOK, stakeholders need to understand options considered and rejected to support their decision-making process. Which is kind of a different way to say what we did say. But the BABOK did talk about this. I know it's not B, because B is not even talking about the question. It's giving an answer for something totally different. Okay, let's move forward. An organization seeks to increase employee satisfaction within the next year. What is this an example of? So they seek to increase employee satisfaction within the next year. Is this potential value, a business objective, a business requirement, or a business goal?
Between B and D. So the correct answer.
Okay, so you like B and D.
Yeah. So we have it in the company, but I'm
Right.
hesitating. Maybe business objective, B.
Okay. I'm going to remind you that the BABOK has its own definition for objective that's almost opposite of what we all think of.
Ah, okay. Oh,
Objectives have to be smart.
Okay. Then D.
Okay. Let's test B.
Eliminating.
Yeah.
This is why B is not. It's not specific enough. If it said we seek to increase employee satisfaction from 23% to 47% by this specific date, I would say, okay, that's smart. It's specific. Smart acronym. But a business goal is a statement or a state of or condition that an organization is seeking to establish and maintain. So that's why this is a business goal, not an objective. I always have to think about this. If in the BABOK company, we want to meet our objectives and we have KPIs and we know exactly what we have to do to get there. It's not some ambiguous cloud thing of, I want to make people happy. That's a goal. That's a great goal, but it's not an objective in the BABOK company. Mark and his team are working to complete a gap analysis in order to write a business case to obtain funding for an initiative. The future state is defined and risks have been identified and assessed. Before long, the team realizes they are missing a key input to complete the analysis. What is it? So let's talk about what they do have. They're working on a gap analysis. That means from current state to future state. They're working on the business case to get the funding. They've got the future state defined and risks have been identified and assessed. So what is it they're missing? The definition of current state, transition requirements, a comparison of the requirements from key stakeholders, or a change strategy.
Change strategy.
I think change strategy, because it's the fourth task. So the current state should be done first, and the risks are done first. So yeah, that's my rationale for change strategy.
It doesn't say anything about them having current state.
Right, it doesn't, it just says that they've
Yeah,
working to complete a gap analysis.
Analyze the current state, and then you do the future state. So you're not gonna assume.
Normally, and if you're analytical and logical, but do you know how many companies we've gone into that they say, we're not going to worry about current state, we're just going to implement this new software?
Yeah. I just didn't know if the BABOK assumed that. Is the current state an input for the future state?
I don't think so.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
No.
without current state and future state, we cannot do the gap analysis. And they are working on the gap analysis, so they need both states to find the gap.
Yeah.
The future state's input is business requirements.
All right. So then, yeah, I guess A makes the most sense.
Now, if this is wrong, I'm going to be embarrassed, but let's test it. Current state capabilities are needed to determine the gap between today and what will be needed in the future. Now, I understand you saying, well, of course they finished the current state or they wouldn't have done the future state because that's what we would do, but that's not what the question says. Okay, let's get one more in. When analyzing the current state in an organization, a business analyst may perform a cultural assessment. Which one of the following is not true regarding the value of a cultural assessment? You've got to have the definition of cultural assessment in your mind as you read this, as you answer this. The cultural assessment will identify which processes and tools are sufficient enough to support a new solution. A cultural assessment will ascertain whether or not the stakeholder view of the current state is satisfactory. A cultural assessment will ascertain whether or not stakeholders believe the change is necessary, or a cultural assessment will identify if cultural changes are required to achieve the goals.
C.
And we
Correct is C.
A.
The answer is A.
okay. Let's defend. How do we think? What, Irina? Why do you
It is
think
not
C is the right answer?
true.
Not sure.
So I think I saw this question in this book just 1 hour before the class.
Okay.
It's just my memory. I don't know.
So 3 of these answers are correct. They're true, and 1 of them is false. Because remember, this is a question.
Then
Yeah.
okay.
A is false, I think.
Okay. Yeah. If it's
Okay.
if they're talking not.
good.
Yeah.
Let's test it. This is a description of an operational assessment.
Mhm.
That means it's not true for this scenario. Now, I'm going to remind you that Watermark Learning has used these not questions and such questions like that to help us understand the concepts. You're not going to see not questions on the actual test. The
Ah,
actual test does not have, eliminate this one. They're going to say which one is the best answer that answers it properly. It's not going to be a, not question or a double negative or anything like that. You're not going to have that on the actual test.
Okay, because in the book it's not a negative question.
It's backwards in the book. I see.
Yeah.
And the book is written by the same company that wrote these, but these came out 10 years ago, and that book has been revised many, many times. I don't think I saw some new questions in here the other day for the first time in years. So they are putting in some new questions, which is kind of an exciting thing. Okay, we are at the end of our time. We answered 20 questions. We got 3 questions wrong, which means we're what at 86 or something like that. We're doing pretty darn good.
85.
We've gone through thank you. We have gone through chapter 6 several times, and we're making pretty good scores. We're not perfect yet, but I don't expect us to get perfect yet. Okay, this is an ongoing process. What do y'all think about moving on to the next chapter? Now, those of you who are risk avoidant are going to say, no, we can't move on to the next chapter.
Let's move forward.
Yeah, sure. Let's move
It's
forward.
tolerant right there. Here we go.
Tia, a quick question.
Yes.
Does Watermark Learning gives a feedback how we did on this chapter?
Yes, they do. If I submit this exam, it's going to tell us these 5 that are unanswered are wrong. And so I just do the math up here, but let me show you what would happen if I submitted the exam. It tells us that because we didn't answer these 5, we made a 68%. It does tell us everything we answered was within the knowledge area strategy analysis. So let me show you. Let me get out.
What basically I was trying to say, like, if we can do an assessment on our performance, so based on the assessment, we can either move or we can stay on this chapter.
Well, our assessment, our score right now is that we made an 85. The score that you have to make on the test has never been published, and they also say that it's based upon who's taking it at that time. So if everybody's making super high scores, you have to make high scores at that time. If everybody's making low, you have to make low scores at that time. It's a sliding scale based upon the public performance. So the standard that we believe. The standard that we believe is true is that you need to be making about a 72 in each knowledge area to be able to pass the test. We also know that the watermark questions are harder than the actual test. The actual test is more scenario based. Watermark is asking you knowledge questions so that you can really understand the tasks, and some of them are scenario based. So based upon that, we are making a higher score than we need to be able to pass this knowledge area, realizing we're all working together right now, I'd like to move on to chapter 7 next time and get that one started. Because as I've told you too many times, 6, 7, and 8 are the hardest ones. And I don't want to spend all of our time on 6 whenever we also need to be spending a good amount of time on 7 and 8. So y'all okay with going to 7 next time?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm fine.
All right. All right. Let's see, Amal, you should be receiving the Watermark book. I do need to get your address and your phone number so I can ship it to Watermark so they can ship it out to you. It typically takes about a week. So if you can send that to me on LinkedIn, I will get that shipped out.
Okay, a quick question. While I was registering for this course, I filled all those information.
Okay.
Do you have the chance to check that you have, if you have received it already?
Well, I did receive the notification that you paid for it, so I'm sure it's in there. I just didn't go in and look for it to pull that out. I had you sign it in a different way than I've had some other people sign up, so I'm having to learn all new systems. They've given us some upgrades, which we do appreciate so much. So I will go in and see if I can see that information, and if I can't, I'll ask you again for it, okay?
So if if you want, I can send it as an email quickly. And one more question before taking too much of your time and other time. So next week we'll go through the chapter 7. Do we get any other additional materials throughout the week, or we are meeting directly next Thursday?
We're meeting directly next Thursday, and we're going to do practice test questions on chapter 7. I'll do a summary of chapter 7 at the very beginning, just to be sure that y'all got just the basic stuff that I think is important. Has anybody looked ahead? Can you tell me what's unique about the way chapter 7 is laid out? It's the only knowledge area in the whole BABOK that has how many tasks?
Oh, I haven't looked ahead.
It's got 6 tasks.
6.
So chapter 6 had 4 tasks. Chapter 7 has 6 tasks. Everything else has 5 tasks. So we've got 6 to look at this time.
The maximum tasks.
Say that again.
It has the maximum tasks.
The maximum tasks.
Yeah, maximum tasks. So chapter 7 is your requirements analysis and design definition. We generally call it RAD, R-A-D-D. It's just the RAD chapter. That just makes it easier. So it talks about actually the work you do with the requirements themselves. So we talked about current state and future state and change analysis and I'm sorry, I'm getting it mixed up. Current state, future state, assess risk, and define change strategy. So that's looking at it kind of from the project level, you know, where we are at, what we're doing. Now we're going to talk about how we manage our requirements. So there's specifying model requirements. This is whenever you get them written down and you get them diagrammed, you know, if you need a process flow or something like that. Then you go into verify requirements. This is this requirement that I wrote going to meet my business need? You're looking back at the beginning. Then you go into validate requirements. And this is looking forward to validate that it will meet if the solution that it's designing, that is describing will be met, will meet the business need. Then you define your requirements architecture. That one was a hard one for me because whenever I think about requirements architecture, I don't know what I'm talking about, you know, whenever I first started this. Because there's business architecture, there's requirements architecture, there's systems architecture. The requirements architecture is the requirements supporting each other. It's think about them building. I'm old. I used Tinker Toys whenever I was a kid. You know, we built little structures out of sticks and stuff, and they had to support each other. That's what I would think of whenever I think of requirements architecture now. And then the design options, figuring out how you're going to manage your solution and get there. And again, change strategy is an input into that. And then the last one, analyze potential value and recommend a solution, which is very similar to what we did way back here when we were defining your change strategy. It's just looking at it from a requirements perspective. So it's kind of like you're looking into the same field from a different perspective. Okay? Okay. Y'all are going to do great. I know you are. I'm so looking forward to seeing y'all next week. It has been a pleasure tonight. I hope you've gotten good stuff out of this. Michelle, I hope your microphone works well by next week because I miss you. And I will see y'all in 1 week.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And shout if you have any questions. I can make time. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye,
day.
guys.
All right, bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.